Welcome back to Taiwan Outlook. Joining us today is Mr. C.Y. Huang. He's the Vice Chairman and President of Greater China Investment Banking of Polaris Financial Group. Mr. Huang, we've been discussing Taiwan's banking sector. As you mentioned that internationalization is very important to compete, even to survive in this very competitive world. But it's easier said than done, right? What's the key to be internationalized?
Of course, several points. Earlier we mentioned about people is very important. Another thing I think is the vision, the strategy. You need to have a bold vision. You need to have a regional expansion strategy. I think many companies in the past is only they have a Taiwan strategy, but they don't have a regional strategy or an international strategy. The third thing I think very important is a partnership. We don't you don't do everything alone. There are still many people in the world don't recognize Taiwan, despite we are very proud of Taiwan for everything we have achieved. So we need to be partnered. We need to find friends with other people. At Polaris, in the past, as I mentioned earlier, we work with AIG, we work with Citi, we work with many of the world's leading financial institutions. I think that is very important. We need global partners. And now with the government have a more positive attitude with China. In the future, we may need to even need to work with Chinese partners to find a win-win the strategy and solution for the greater Chinese market.
So banks not only compete but also cooperate with each other in trying to expand their markets.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to cooperation, there are always some sort of cultural gaps or cultural difference among different banks. How to deal with that kind of problem? You've been helping this kind of acquisition all along.
Yeah, I think culture. You need to have something both global and you need to have something both very local. So it's the first of all, you need to train and work with the local people. So Taiwanese cannot excel in other markets, whether it's a PRC Chinese market or Singapore markets, if it's everything by Taiwanese. Although I say earlier, Taiwanese need to go abroad, but you need to train their people and work with their local people. But you also need to have the central system, which is export from the Taiwan, and ultimately you need to be able to communicate and make sure people from different culture, different regions can work together. That is the art of management. In the past, I spent a lot of time doing deals, but these days I spend a lot of time on communicating to bridge the cultural gap. So yes, it is a challenge, but whoever that can bridge the cultural gap effectively going to be the winner in the future.
Do you think that local banks are now aggressive enough in trying to find their partners abroad?
I think yes, there are some banks who are more aggressive than the others. But I think that certainly there are more room, further rooms can be done. But I think so far most of the foreign multinational, they only look at the top of the pyramid. So they only pick the largest institution, the Fubon, Cathay. But so I think that's not good enough. They are there are so many financial institutions. So all banks need to identify the niche and work with the more international partners. I think the global partnership is a very important key for our future success.
But the other side of the coin is the international banks looking for partners in Taiwan. What do they pay attention to, in terms of our local banks' advantages?
Well, I can speak from a Polaris experience. After all, we have sold a bank to Citi, the world's largest bank, and we have sold our insurance company to AIG, the world's leading insurance company. I think they are looking for people, number one, who have the strong executing capability locally. So you need to you need to be very good, at doing what you're doing locally. And number two, you need to be a market leader. And number three, you need to be able to appreciate and understand and work with the multinational. Some people they are too local. They cannot with the multinational. They cannot with the international. So there is a fine balance. How do you balancing the global as well as and the local aspect, skillfully to strike the best balance.
That's right. And coming back to the regional economy, apparently South Korea now is in trouble, and they're also concerned that Taiwan could also be in a downturn. How do you see those so-called four tigers, five tigers economy now?
Well, the one thing for sure, nothing is gonna be a breeze for the tigers. And every tiger is facing their respective challenges.
Yeah.
Korea, they have set maybe a goal too high. Now they are, the suffering, and they're faltering. And for the Hong Kong, they've been relying too much on China.
That's right.
And now China, for example, just on the IPO market, in the past there are many Chinese IPO, now they are gone. So Hong Kong market is doing not so good this year. And Singapore is trying to diversify, finding a new niche. Taiwan, there's the open, the new open policy. Among the four tigers, I'm more bullish about our economy as well as Singapore. Singapore, I think, is still a very respectable government, the open platform. They are, very disciplined, set an international center. So they also want to link the Singapore economy to India, to the Middle East. So they have reducing the rely to China.
Yeah.
And for Taiwan, I think the prospect, should be better with lots of things change. And I think the challenge is for companies to really figure out, the future, the elements, key of success, because we are entering into a lot of the new era. There are lots of possibilities. Companies can reposition, multinational can reposition their headquarters in Taiwan. Chinese gonna invest in real estate in Taiwan, and Taiwan also gonna find a new business model, for example, domestic sales in China. So there are many new territories for us, and I think there's certainly more reason to be positive.
But as you mentioned, that Hong Kong is too much dependent on the China market, and that caused some problems for Hong Kong. But as with the opening up of Taiwan's market to the Chinese, or our investment in China, and do you think that Taiwan will be eventually like Hong Kong, that we are too much dependent on China market?
No, I don't think that would be the case. I think Taiwanese companies, if you ask anyone these days, is very cautious about China, because Taiwan should invest less about China manufacturing. Taiwan should invest more about China domestic consumption and domestic marketing sales. And Taiwan should invest more on global marketing, and then also teaming up with the global players to either penetrate into other global markets, or teaming up with the global players to enter collectively into the China market. So I think, for those areas, we are talking about intellectual capital. We are not talking about huge capital investment in building a $2 billion manufacturing facility in Dongguan. So it's gonna be a new territory. So I think Taiwan, I'm not saying we should shy away from China. I'm saying we should have a new approach, focus on China, focus really on the higher value added stuff, to raise our economy to a new standard.
In addition to the China market, what are the other markets that investors should pay more attention to?
I think if you look at long term, the Asia Pacific region, still have modest growth. China market is one area they should not overlook, but they should focus on sectors. Certain sectors will do better than the others. Like this year alone is more focused on the consumer sectors versus the other sectors. And elsewhere in the region, I think the economy and the India companies' capability to operate in the world, worth investor a close look as well.
Finally, the oil price. Do you think that we have already reached a peak, or are we looking for the? No,
we don't believe we have reached the peak. I think it is certainly possible the oil price could reach to, say, 200. So I think the alternative energy, energy saving, anything surrounding that scheme is worth people to have a close thought. So any sector, we need to change, companies to change the behavior. Investors need to look at the sector, who's going to be benefit, who's going to be hurt. I think we all need to adjust into a, the higher oil price. We have already facing the oil price adjustment in Taiwan already, and the global trend is going to continue. So I think it will be a challenge for people, not only in Taiwan, but also elsewhere in the world.
But do you think that the skyrocketing oil price is because of the speculation or the demand and supply imbalance?
Well, it is mainly the demand supply imbalance. We are, the world's resources, is limited. The people in the past don't feel there's any cost associated with that. but that gotta be changed. So I'm positive about anybody making conscious technology. For example, Toyota, making the hybrid cars. They now have a winning strategy. But if you look at Nissan, if you look at Honda, they are suffering. So we need to look at this is a big trend that are gonna affect our life in the next 20, 30 years. I think the people in Taiwan, if there's any danger, great danger, I think people are not sensitive about that. And I think we need to think more about that. We need to formulate a strategy. And those companies who have a strategy and who are able to adapt themselves successfully, gonna be serve us as the future survivor and winner.
So the old saying, survival of the fittest.
Absolutely.
And thank you much, Mr. Huang. Thank you for coming to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone.
And CY Huang, Vice Chairman and President of Greater China Investment Banking of Polaris Financial Group. And thank you for watching Taiwan Outlook, and see you next time.